everybody's attention. We're going to go ahead and get started for the sake of time. Thank you everybody for coming. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Rick Skavinsky. I am the current president for the board of directors. To my left, this is Amy Seasonop, right, our secretary treasurer. Next we have William Munson, vice president for the board. And then this is Nicole McGraw. She's our representative from Century. That's our management company. She's helping us with some of the logistics. All right, I assume everybody's here because of the information we sent out about the roofs. For those that aren't up to speed with the ongoing conversation with the roofs, so the builders have been in control of the association up until April of last year, give or take, and that's when we were elected to the board for the first time as owners, not the builders. Since that point in time, we've basically been playing a game of catch up to try to figure out what's going on, and the roofs has been one of the major pain points. Since then, our work through that point, which we're gonna go over here, will hopefully kind of explain what we've done to this point. And then we hope to have a conversation about where we can go from here. So we're gonna explain some of that information. Hopefully this is gonna cover some of the basic questions that some of you might have. We'll try to work through that as quickly as possible to keep as much time for questions, comments, concerns after that. All right, so I'm just gonna jump into it. So next slide, please.
It was working.
Drum roll.
There we go.
Hey, and all this information up here is on the handout essentially, with what you have as well. So one of the points of confusion for a lot is the structure of the association itself, right? There's not two associations, there's one association, Brookside Master Association. It covers 482 homes, give or take, in that whole area, part of which is the cottages, about 96 of those, right? There are some differences between the cottages and the rest, which I'm sure we'll go over. Obviously, part of that is the responsibility for roofs, gutters, maintaining the lawns and such. But we are maintaining, as the indentures require, a separate budget for those specific items that are related to the cottages. So as you're well aware, you're making a payment to the master portion of the association. That's your annual payment, $330 currently. That is for the budget, that is for master, that has nothing to do with cottages. So that's gonna be the pool, mowing the common areas, things like that. And then the monthly assessments, that is specifically covering the expenses to the cottages, like the roofs. So that's just one thing we wanted to make sure we're clear about that. So one association, one board. We can go to the next slide. So we just wanted to try to give a visual. I know the question's always around money, right? Where'd the money go? Why are we spending money? So one thing we wanted to try to emphasize with this pie chart, of the $200 a month that we're collecting, this is where the money goes, right? You'll notice the elephant in the room, over 50% of that money is just for the insurance policy. So again, for those that weren't at the annual meeting or haven't been following along, when we first took over the board last year, we were paying roughly $48,000 annually for the insurance that we are obligated to cover for the indentures, for the cottages. Due to a multitude of factors, that insurance went up 2.5 times in cost for the next year, which started October of 2022, right? We had a major fire claim. The carrier that we were with left the state and dropped us all together. Inflationary problems, as we're all aware of. And there's just been problems with the insurance industry with cottages / condos and associations. If you follow the news, condos collapsing in Florida, all that kind of stuff. It all just kind of came together at the same time. So our cost for insurance went from roughly $48,000 to $117,000 or something like that, which was a massive, so that increase that you saw last year from 120 to 200, the vast majority of that increase was just purely to cover the insurance premiums. You'll notice as well, landscape is a pretty big expense, obviously mowing the lawns all through the year, trimming bushes and so on. Snow removal, which is a variable, sometimes we don't spend any, sometimes it's more than we budgeted. Management, so Century helping us with everything, 6%, right? Reserve contribution, 10%. So we'll dig into that more later, but part of that $200 a month, essentially $20 a month of it is carved out for reserves. So if for anybody that's not familiar, reserves basically like the savings account for the budget for future expenditures, such as the roofs. That collection just started this year after we took over, looked at the numbers, wrapped our mind around where we were at, and realized that there was no reserves to speak of, and there was no money being collected for reserves. So we began doing so last year or this year with the $200 a month. So you'll see that's reflected there. And then the roof repairs of 4%.
We're gonna ask if you hold your questions just till we get done, and then we're gonna go through them, because otherwise we won't get done. Is everyone okay with
Yes,
that?
I'm sorry if I didn't clarify that, thank
Yeah.
you. So we got a couple slides,
I just
this
saw
isn't
something
an hour long,
recent.
and then we'll let everybody ask their questions, okay? So then you see roof repairs as 4% of the budget. What I wanna highlight there, and you'll see the other numbers next to your sheet there. Oh, excuse me, further down. When we first came on, one of the first things that was apparent to us is that we were spending money every month, every year on roof repairs. So literally having, roofing companies come out to repair the roofs. And when I say repairs, typically speaking, we're talking about shingles that have blown loose, windstorms or whatever. There are other problems, but we're spending thousands of dollars doing that every year. And the cost is escalating, right? So you'll notice in the number you got there, and we can go to the next slide. Well, let me go back. So as it stands, with all that being said, collecting the $200 a month, here's where the finances are, just at a very summary level. The operating account, so that's just like the checking account, right? $34,000. The reserve account, so that's our savings account, $33,000. Primarily, that number exists because of that 10% reserve that we started collecting this year. If we hadn't have done that, that number would be probably, $5,000, $6,000, whatever. And then accounts receivable, so that's money that's owed to the association by owners that have not paid. Okay?
And that is just cottage.
Just cottage.
How much was that?
$33,000.
$33,000.
That people have not paid?
That's right.
Correct. And we've collected more this year than we have in the last 2 years
Yeah,
from homeowners.
It was in worse shape than that when we took over.
Yes.
Anybody that may have found themselves in that situation should be able to identify that we've implemented a specific process in order to be consistent, to address that issue, industry standards, so on and so forth, but that's where we stand currently.
I don't know how that could even be possible. We're able to remain living.
Well, that's a challenge that falls on us board.
We've set a process, and we're gonna follow it, and I'm sure, again, some of those people will recognize that, they're getting different letters than they used to. I mean, I don't wanna dig into all that at the moment. but-
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the roofs, right? They're 15+ years old, right? I mean, different ones were built in different years, but essentially we're looking at 15+-year-old roofs. They were builder grade 3-tab, right? So your basic plain Jane type of shingles. I would throw my own opinion to speculate that from what I've seen, I'm not even sure if it was either faulty materials or installed a little less than appropriate, but nonetheless, this is some of the feedback we've gotten from the consultants that we have engaged with to get some of this information, right? So when we talk about the shingles blowing off the roofs, the seams are failing. And I'm not a roofer, but as I understand it, as they overlap, you've got the tar that kind of seals one to the next. Those are failing, so the wind gets up underneath them and basically just rips them out, right? So here's those numbers I was going over, right? So we took over in 2022. One of the first things we did is we went back, once we realized this roof situation is a problem, and tried to look at the previous finances and understand where we're at. So 2021, before we were even on the board, we spent $8,000 repairing roofs, right? That's not replacing anything, that's just somebody comes out, patches it up so we're not leaking, right? 2022, that escalated to $11,600, and 2023, so far, we're at $12,300. We still got 2 months left to go. So you can see, we're just spending more and more money. And when we approach those consultants to look at the roofs, I think what we're trying to identify here is, the feedback we got is if we just said, hey, we don't have money to replace everything, we just wanna repair what's bad. They were quoting $30,000, $40,000. And again, that's not replacing the roofs, right? That's just putting a bandage on it. So,
Well, we have some roofs that are actually at the point they probably.
And some of them should have been replaced
Some of them
a
are,
long time
they
ago.
actually said to us, they couldn't even replace them, we would just need to, I mean, we need to replace them, we couldn't repair them, they're already at the point they wouldn't even do that. So that is where that large number does come, it's not just a small shingle here and there, it's coming from some of them have to be replaced.
So let me just try to walk through the history quickly of what we've done once we recognized this was a problem, right? Really, working with Treestone was nearly impossible to try to make forward progress on that, so we lost several months trying to deal with them through it. Once we got Century brought on board, we tried to take a more formal process. We engaged with consultants, right? You see a reference to Modern Roofing and Consulting to both give us an assessment of the status of the roofs, and they also helped us formulating an RFP, which is really just a formal process to try to bid out, work to get the roofs done.
Did they ever say where the previous money went to?
There was no previous.
There is no previous money, we'll get to that. So we tried to, we worked with consulting to get assessments of the roofs and get an RFP. We took that RFP, bid it out to several vendors, collected that back, weeded out the ones where the price was way too high or other factors, and we've now gotten down to one or two that we believe is an appropriate bid, and that's what led to the mailing that everybody got here, where we're trying to budget for that expense, and obviously that's sure. So, we tried to, the budget that you got is an attempt to reflect in 2024 the expense that we anticipate for trying to address the roofs, okay? Let's go to the next slide. So, a picture is always worth 1,000 words, right? So there's 96 roofs in the cottages, but we just wanted to share with you some of this, feedback we got from them as they did the assessments of roofs. So these are all roofs in the neighborhood cottages, right? So you'll see all these colors. Those are shingles that have been blown off and they're missing, right? You'll also see different colored shingles because those are previous repairs that have already happened. Right, completely missing. Here you'll see an entire section of the roof that has been replaced because it, it's so bad. It just replaced the whole section. Right? So that's where we're at, right? Now, some of the questions that I'm sure are gonna be asked, so let me just try to gut them off, right? Hey, I've been paying my money for years and years. Why isn't there any money to pay for anything? That's probably the most obvious question, right? So again, we were elected in, April of last year. First thing we did was go back, like I said, to 2021 finances, and then obviously back through 2022, and now 2023, and look through that.
Yeah.
Was it elected in April?
April of 2022.
2022, yeah. So.
Okay, that's the situation we're in. We're just gonna let Treestone and Greer and D&I just disappear into the sunset and do nothing about it?
Place management.
Okay. Let me finish.
We're not gonna do anything about that? We're just gonna accept that fact and then press on?
Let me finish, and if I don't answer your questions, you can come up and ask, okay?
Guys, let us finish,
Let me
please.
finish. So we looked at all that. There was no apparent, example of just flat out fraud, somebody's writing checks to themselves, going to the Bahamas. There's no evidence of that. What we saw was.
Something happened because there's no reserves.
It was spent on landscaping and other things.
Right.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have been.
Sir, please let me finish.
Mismanagement.
Please let me finish.
Go
And then
ahead.
everybody can ask questions, okay? For years, they were not collecting enough money to add to reserves. So as we showed in the pie chart, currently, when you're paying $200 a month, we're putting 10% of that away for that reserve account. That had not been done previously, ever. 15 years, no reserves collected, okay? Number one. Number two, they were spending money on things that were not the obligation of the association. And this is a favorite topic I've heard from a lot of cottage owners, power washing your siding. They were spending money doing that, right? That is not an obligation for the association to do so. I don't know how many thousands of dollars were spent on that over the years, right? But if they had not have done that, maybe there would have been at least some more money in the account. Third, back to the accounts receivable, they were not really enforcing when people weren't paying their assessments to the association, right? They might send a letter, they might, do something, but when we came into it, there was tens of thousands of dollars that just hadn't been paid. okay? So the combination of all those factors meant, by the time we came in and looked at it, no, there's no reserve, okay? Well, that's fine. So that's where it stands, right? As far as moving forward, as I said, we added the assessment to collect the reserves, but that's obviously not going to address 15 years of not collecting the money. And unfortunately, the problem we're facing today is that the roofs are old. So we don't have another 10 years to try to collect $20 a month to get to the point of replacing the roofs, okay? So I'm gonna stop there. Is there anything that Amy or William that you wanna add to that before we move to Q&A?
I think it's gonna come out of QA.
Yeah.
And we just address it as it
Yeah.
comes.
So let's do questions. Let me try to, before we turn into chaos here. There's a lot of people here and we've got a limited amount of time. So just out of the sake of respect for everybody getting a chance to ask a question, please ask your question or, state your concern. Let's limit that to, 3 minutes and then we'll move on to somebody else. If we go through everybody and you want to come back, then you're more than welcome and I'm happy to stay here as long as we need to.
May I make a statement before all the questions hit?
Really quick, if you didn't sign in, please just make sure we sign in so we know about how many people were here. It's just unofficial, it's like, I just wanna know about how many people showed up. And yes, so just let me know, I have it right here, I'll hand it back. This is just my notebook that I brought. So don't look at my goofy notes in there. Thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
But since I'm in the trades, I've got some information that might help calm some things down,
Okay.
if I may speak.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, all right.
And
I'm gonna
please-
come up here.
and
I don't
please-
I don't like talking with people behind me.
And if you would, please announce your name so we know who we're talking
You remember my name?
to. I don't.
I'm Dean Oder. I own a company called D&D Handyman Home Solutions where we do everything from handyman work all the way to full custom Pinterest style remodeling. I know roofing and I know stuff. I don't do roofing personally anymore, but I check with my roofers and everything like that. But to keep things more on a positive note, first of all, I would like to thank all the parents and those of us that are grandparents that live in the neighborhood. What a Halloween last night.
Yeah.
Great job. It's the best Halloween I've seen there in the 6 years that I've been there. But the thing that I want to talk about is one of the things, and my wife said there is a lawyer in the room. And depending on your insurance, I'm trying to find the letter. Oh, here it is. So I say it right. Depending on your insurance coverage, there is a thing that's called, was it loss assessment or something like that? Some of it will not cover this situation, but on my insurance policy, I made sure that I was covered, that if any HOA issues came up and stuff like that, that I have a $20,000 policy to cover issues like we're facing right now. So when these roofs do get replaced, the only thing my wife and I have out of pocket is $500. We've talked to some of the neighbors. The house next to me is a rental. I talked to him, I talked to his roofer and everything like that. The one neighbor, they decided to change their insurance a year ago. Good old Liberty, pay for what you need. Well, guess what? That's not on there no more, so everything would be out of pocket for them. So before everybody gets really riled up, you might want to check your insurance policies, to be quite honest. The other thing that I have to say, I'm not going to get into it. You've already heard it. The bottom line is, did somebody come out and just steal our money? I don't think that. It's just when Lombardo was in charge of everything and when Treestone was in charge of everything. Treestone is part of Greer, which they are one of the worst management companies out there that anybody that works in the trades that knows them. That's what hurt us. And I believe Lombardo, if you want to say anything, was maybe lining their buddies' pockets because some of the assessments and pricing that I saw things coming down were way out of whack for what they were doing. Way out of whack. So, but what I wanted to go over real quick is I feel if we have to pay out of our own pocket for our roofs, I think Century and the board, if we're paying for it, and it's not part of the regular fund, we should be able to go who with what we want and everything. Because the prices that I got, I actually had to smile and shake my head. Because especially if you guys are doing this, and Century is helping control this, and they're saying $6,800 basically to cover each roof, where each roof's a different size. My house is 1,375 square feet. And if any of you guys know anything about roofing, your roof will be replaced by the square, not by the shingle. A square is a 10 by 10 foot area of your roof. So if you roughly, mine came out to just over 13 square. And then you have what they call scrap two to cut, because you're gonna have leftover. But anyway, my pricing came out to just over $5,200. So there is a lot better pricing than what came out on the letter. I'm just letting you all know.
Thank you for that.
And my neighbor was like $5,700, so keep all that in mind. So just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. So let's respond to that. Let me respond to that, because, otherwise we'll, the problem is the way the indentures are written, the association is responsible to replace those roofs, right? Believe me, I can assure you, every one of us here would prefer a circumstance where this is not our problem. Go replace your roofs when you deem appropriate. But the fact of the matter is, the indentures obligate the association to replace the roofs. Right. We want to have that conversation. We're attempting to have that conversation.
But I don't know that that's a conversation tonight.
Yeah, the problem is, we don't believe that we can wait, because that's not gonna happen
Right.
overnight, to get to that point before the roofs are, again, we have that responsibility. Roofs start leaking, association gets sued, we have problems with that either way. So,
Can you get financing? If you're looking at getting financing from a bank right now,
we considered getting financing, we did not go down that
So
road.
we have to pay for our roof?
Yes. An association with
The association has to pay for the roof, but the only way the association has money is by collecting it from the owners. Okay, let's move on to the next. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. I need to go back to work, so I appreciate you.
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Lynn O'Neill, I live at 324 Burning Brook. I wanna say that I kind of do this. We're in good hands with Century Management. The numbers sound really correct. So you're saying about the average cost of the roofs is gonna be about $7,000 per person here. Is that what we're kind of thinking?
That's what the assessment was, yes.
About $7,000 per person. So my question is, are you, to assess $7,000 per unit just in 1 year is incredibly hard for all of us to do. Even breaking it up to 2 years, that's $200 a month if you're gonna do $3,500 a year. And my roof is only 14 years old, so I know the ones in my area are only 14. They're probably in better shape because we had, a better project manager and stuff like that. So I don't think that all the roofs need to be replaced within the next couple of years. For 96 roofs, you could do 10 a year, 15 a year, and you could spread it out to a much more equitable special assessment of $50 a month, $75 a month. In the meantime, I get that roof repairs are gonna happen, but that can come out of the general fund, just like we are now. If we replace six of the bad roofs next year and just slowly repair the ones that are still, need repair, it would be so much better for everybody financially than saying $200 a month starting next month. I think that's the one thing I would say.
Okay.
I don't think that's it. But I hope you consider that, or I hope you consider, even if you want to take the roof, replacement off the bylaws, if that's the way everybody here feels, I know I would be happy to go door to door. If we need 2/3 of, how many homes, 500 homes, we can all divide it out, if that's the way you all wanna go, and there to help you. But I hope you consider one of those options, slow.
We hear you on the spreading it out, we're gonna look into that.
Okay, it's just slow, it's a lot, it's really fast.
Understood.
So, okay, thank you all, I gotta go back to Macy's.
Okay. Go ahead, Andrew.
So, for those that don't know me, my name is Andrew Parker. I am on the cottage committee, appointed by them, along with Mandy and then Kimberly in the back. So, first thing, I operate by day as a director of marketing. So my question to the board, and I directed to Dr. Munson yesterday, I deal with RFPs and RFQs every single day. And we send RFPs and RFQs out for our services every single day. Why only 4 RFPs? In a area of hundreds of roofers where a roofing company or somebody knows a roofing company is on every corner in this city, why only 4 RFPs? It just doesn't seem like you're getting the best deal possible. And I understand if we do 100 RFPs and they all come back to be the same price, fine, and that's great. Then then at least we know we're getting a good deal. But to only submit 4 RFPs and request for bids, and at the time that we met in August, it was 3, and only go up 1. You got to get more bids. You got to go out and get more bids
Do
from
you
other
believe
roofers.
more bids will change the price?
Yes.
If it,
Yes.
it could, but if it doesn't change the price, then at least we know that we're getting the market value deal.
Yes.
And in terms of the slowing it down and spreading it out, the only response to that is obviously with inflation, the cost of materials is going to rise. But
So hang on a second.
My roofer said he could save at least $1,000 per.
I've already got
We gotta
another.
be careful with, like, if
What
you're
you
doing
have
it
to
yourself, right? Of course you can do it cheaper if you're doing it yourself, right? There's
No,
overhead involved.
I had them I had them go over the whole neighborhood and figure,
I
they just
understand
did
that.
mine personally, but they said.
I understand
the bid
that.
was
What I'm
too
saying
high.
is there's overhead cost when you're doing a project this size, as you should maybe be able to communicate too, right? That charge includes, right, paying for the RFP, paying for a management fee from Century, right? It's not just the cost of the roof, right? There's also fee in there because as we mentioned with the accounts receivable, everybody's not gonna pay that fee, right? So we have to collect enough money to cover the roofs. Okay?
Well, I
So
can-
that math.
How much money you guys spending to have somebody survey it? Cause you're talking $80,000 to $100,000 for all that extra work you're talking about.
It's not $800,000. Let's be careful to give everybody a chance to ask questions, but I wanna answer yours. So what's limiting us from doing an RFP to 20 more vendors?
We can certainly reach out to more vendors. The vendors that we selected were recommended by the roofing consultant company or roofers that we've worked with before previously. We vetted insured vendors, we picked vendors of different size, but you have to be careful when you're doing a project of this size to ensure that the company is able to handle a scope of work this large. You can't just get a roofer who can do your individual roof, because they're not able to handle a project of this magnitude. So there's certainly other vendors that we could get bids from, and we can certainly help you guys do that if the board wants to. Generally speaking, it's not standard to get hundreds of RFPs, typically 3 to 4, maybe 5 bids is pretty standard, but we can get more.
And if you have recommendations,
Great.
send them on in.
I tell you what, Andrew, what we'll do, you'll connect with the cottage cottages, and you'll kind of like get around about different, companies, and then we'll kind of like take those companies and kind of like get an understanding of what we kind of like send out bids. But understand this also, when we talk about different companies, you saw the roofs. That was from probably a company that the builders pretty much hired to build those roofs. And you see within 15 years what the expectations were.
15 years is the average life for a roof. 15 to 20 years is the average life. You're not.
But understand with some of these companies that we were actually looking into also provide certain warranties as well. We don't make sure that when you're looking at the language of some of these companies that's giving you bids, there's certain language that, provides warranties and so forth.
It's all in there.
So
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I'm just,
50 years on the shingles, 10 year on the labor.
and that's fine. So Andrew, would you please do us a favor and just get around about number of roofing companies that can kind of like, get back to us, and we'll try to like send out a bid. That's fine.
Or we can ask
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, we still have the bid form that we can send out to any other vendors, so.
Yep. Yeah, we
Pretty
have the
simple
RFP,
process,
right?
yep.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so Andrew Redcap, I've been in the cottages since 2007. I'm not one of the original ones that were here, but phase 1, which consists of Burning Brook and Brushy Brook, I completed phase 1 roughly around, I don't know, 2007, 8. So those roofs are 15 years old. The roofs that I saw that you put pictures of, those are phase 1 roofs. 96 homes does not constitute phase 1. That's phase 1, 2, and 3 of the cottages. Why are we replacing roofs on homes that are 6, 7, maybe 8 years old?
I I don't,
No, the
the
last
last
homes were built-
cottage that
the
we
last
have
homes were
in
built
file.
2009.
Right, the
My
last
house was the
cottage we
last
have
one
is
built,
2009.
And it's 12 years old.
right.
And where's your house?
107 Brushy Brook.
Okay, so Brushy Brook.
I was right, I was the house built right past all the, displays.
Right.
Yeah, right by the exit.
That's what it is, right? Yeah.
So are we including phase 2 and 3 in this, or is it
2 and
just
3
phase
were
one?
never built.
Yeah, there was no 2 and 3. It was, the last
It was
home was
sold off.
2009, the last cottage that we had assessed,
And
so.
T.R. Hughes went bankrupt and the
Right.
rest of the land went back to the
And
bank.
that's when, well.
Lombardo.
bought and then.
Benson or
Benton
somebody.
bought some. So there is, so really, it is only phase 1,
Okay.
okay? So that is why this is a group thing.
Yes, they are. Yes, in the back, yes. Yes, ma'am.
3 minutes. Put the number on.
It is so much of a pleasure to speak with the board and President McGraw again after our accountability call on October 26th. So I represented the cottages and how I was very concerned because I have refused services since the elected board of July 2022. And then there was a lack of adherence from what was reported at City Hall. And then I also have even more evidence, just so much conflicting information between President McGraw and President Rick. So I do have a couple questions, just to make sure we're aligned with integrity. So based on all the conflicting information, how come I told President McGraw going forward, I wanted to be part,
Ma'am, can I ask you a quick, what's your name?
Angela Viviano.
Is this about the roofs?
This is actually deeper than the roofs.
Okay,
This is bringing
just,
public
no
awareness.
disrespect, this is a meeting about the roofs.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with you on the phone, if we need to continue that, we'll do so. But please, let's hold this meeting to the roofs. Can you respect that?
I
We have a lot of individuals that are here concerned about the roofs, and I'm sure they wanna hear the issues about the roof. Do you have a question about the roofs?
I have a question regarding the ethical concerns and the protection of who we are as a people. Because our voices were taken from us, our voters' rights was taken from us. And I'm wondering why I was told that I couldn't attend all homeowner meetings, even though there's a approved agenda by Rick on August 22nd that every single homeowner can request for us to be a part of the monthly meetings. And then I'm also wondering, can you repeat what you misspoke again, Rick? About
Okay,
on the
I'm gonna
call?
go back to William's point.
So
Angela,
I'll just state it.
if
that
you have a
this,
roof question,
knowing
please
from the
ask.
cottages ran, but I am holding the ballot. That I did, and this would change everything, going back to March 4th, 2023, that was not adhered by the board, and I am in concern with President McGraw that she's protecting.
She's not the president.
She's not a president. She works,
Division president? but
she
her-
works for Century. She
Well,
works for our management
How
company.
would,
She's not part
if
of
I
our board.
contacted the
Okay.
senior vice president of Century,
Okay.
how would this reflect? If the prosecutor, attorney of the victims unit saw all the solid information and everything we spoke on the accountability call, how do you think they would view all this?
Ma'am, out of
Yes,
this, okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I missed
Next
it.
question.
I apologize, sorry.
Let's go with the man in the blue here, yes, sir.
Hi guys, my name is Bill Mulder, and I own 137 and 139 Brushy Brook next to these two guys. Hey, first of all, the board is no different than us, guys. They're volunteers. Let's not get too stressed out. I was on the board at Thornberry across the interstate there where we put roofs on. I drove that through, we put on Owens Corning 50-year life, architectural shingles, 155-mile-an-hour wind with a 10-year warranty, for labor, all those things. We can talk about who to go with, that's not a big deal, you're gonna get your price maybe down a little bit with a couple more RFPs.
Yep.
You're right, you don't wanna go with just anybody, because you know what, you gotta have the financial strength to put this together and the experience. We use Signature, we looked at Ferguson, never mind, don't worry about that, we'll figure that out. The bigger problem is, guys, if you think that you got a little delinquency problem right now with $33,000, you're gonna have a much bigger delinquency problem, because not everybody here can shell out $6,500. Now, it's usually cheaper to replace all the roofs at one time, it's a cheaper, quicker, process.
Right.
That's why almost everybody does it at one time. We did it at Thornberry, even if we had some units that were 12 years old, and we had some that were 20 years old, and the 20-year-olds were feeling. We replaced them all because it was just cheaper. We also had reserves. Most of the reserves. We now borrow a little bit. But I also work at a bank. I'm a CPA, I'm a lawyer. I'm licensed here in Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Illinois. Guys, you're not going to be able to go to a bank probably because you don't have any skin in the game. You're not going to be able to put a deposit down. So the financing is probably a good decision by the bank. Probably not going to be a great solution. You're also going to increase your costs because you're going to need a legal opinion from a lawyer saying they're the board, they're in charge. Those legal opinions are not cheap. So probably the financing isn't a great option. But the other problem is, guys, you got 100 units, let's say $6,500, that's $650,000. You can assess it right now, but I'm sure there's going to be people in this room that can't pay it. So we're in a little bit of a dilemma here. And I think what we're probably going to have to do, support the board here, because they're just volunteers, but maybe, somebody over here said, looking at replacing some at a time, because I think that's gonna be your only option here, is to go out and say, okay, hey, I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to get a whole lot of money if you book everybody at $6,500. I'll pay, not a problem, but I don't think everybody else can pay. If not, we got some people with fixed incomes over here, and they're gonna have a hard time, so we're gonna have to work with the board, we're gonna have to work with some kind of a process where we can get the money out of us, because don't look at the past, don't look at, the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror for a reason, guys. Look ahead of you, don't look behind you. There wasn't a whole lot of, there's not a lot of theft. Hey, there was maybe something, not the greatest, but hey, it's behind you, guys, move forward.
But how can we consider a credible source of truth when all I can, every time I speak with them, there's conflicting information? It's not
There's a lot of stress and anxiety here. I would not get into the ethics issues here with this board, because there's freaking volunteers just like us. Could be this person, and this person on the board.
There's HOA bylaws that they have to follow.
They're following to the T, ma'am. I looked at every one of those. And they're following to the exact T, I'm telling you. I graduated number 2 out of 165 students at my law school. I'm not the average schmo lawyer. That's why I own a couple here, and I own a couple at Thornberry, and I own some others. They're following to the T. They've got a great management company. It's a good management company. It's a big one out there like CMA and Smith Management. So you've got everything going here, good. It's just, guys, I don't think we're gonna get $650,000 this year out of everybody in this room.
Are we talking about $6,500
I got a question.
It's $6,500 one time is what they're looking at, but
$33,000 for people who have not paid for
Yeah, and-
association. Why should we cover their roof?
Yeah.
Why should we pay out?
It's not
Pay for
our
those
problem.
roofs?
People
Guys,
don't pay their bills.
they've got a process in place. I know the processes they follow. I'm on 3 other boards right now. I can't be on a 4th board, okay? But they're doing the best they can. They're whittling it on down. They got stuck in a,
They're learning.
no, they got stuck in a bad
Procedure
situation.
takes place.
No.
HOA. They've been doing this for 3 years, right?
Year and a half.
Year and a half.
A year and a half.
Okay,
Guys,
they're still learning.
No, they're not learning. They've got a great management company to advise them, and they've
To advise
changed.
them, so they're still learning.
Well, sir, listen, sir, we can be here 5 years, we'll always learn, but we've understood enough to kind of like get the board and run with what we have to run
And he
with.
said that the previous money was not there before you guys took over.
Because it's never,
Yeah,
it's
so
never
someone
been
took
raised.
the money
Nobody,
before it ran?
no, it just.
There was no money.
There was no
Nobody
extra,
else.
no,
So
it was
everybody was
enough,
paying
it was enough
monthly
to pay
fees
the
for
bill,
nothing?
if they were paying the bills.
No, guys, you're
They
looking
were paying the minimum, it used to be like $100.
You guys, our fees
Yeah.
here.
They wasn't charging,
I promise.
they wasn't charging the homeowners enough.
The builders can't.
And the homeowners basically took, I gotta say,
Thank
took a half
you
a
so
million
much.
with that.
Thank you,
Standing up,
Mr.
sir.
Mulvaney, thank you.
And I wanna,
One other thing. If you're looking at the loss assessment,
Okay, so that's.
it isn't gonna work. What the loss assessment is for is if somebody drowned in the pool and
Right,
they're
but that's why
working,
I'm saying you're
they're
assuming
paid,
that
you know, you have to pay out $10 million,
there was not.
and the board only has $5 million of insurance. It's an insurable event. The other $5
It's
million
good
you come
enough
out
to
to,
make the
that's what your
payment.
loss assessment is for. This isn't an insurable event, so unfortunately, that the insurance isn't gonna cover you in this particular circumstance.
yeah.
Hail damage, another one.
So,
Okay, okay.
So I wanna respond one thing to what he said. We agree with you that expecting, okay, I'm
I
sorry,
understand there'd be a lien against my home if I didn't.
excuse me, I'm
It's
sorry.
not acceptable to me that we cannot go back further and find out where that money is. I think that's not realistic to tell
But what
us
we're
where
trying to
it's at.
say is, when we came in, we asked, I'm gonna tell you,
Well, then maybe we need to take legal action.
There's no legal
Every
action.
year, we
We're-
just go, we don't know where it is.
But if we take legal action, who's gonna pay for that?
I'm
You
sorry.
are.
I'm not like this, but I-
You are.
No.
When
When someone doesn't pay their
We
mutual
pursued,
aid
we looked into a lawyer,
That's
hiring a
all.
lawyer. Yeah, we looked into hiring a lawyer for that, we consulted with them, and the feedback was it's gonna cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and the likelihood that you're gonna get anything from that is not very big.
Since my
So
bonus
if,
rate was taken.
so if you wanna do that, hang on, guys, the whole thing's gonna fall apart if we don't follow a structure, please, pretty please. I wanna give everybody a chance to speak, I wanna respond to something specifically he said. We agree that trying to go straight to the $7,000 is probably folly. It's probably gonna cause a lot of people to just not pay, and then we're just in a worse situation. So we would love to try to spread that out. That's what we're hoping to do here, is we're willing to take feedback. If you have suggestions of how you think you can do, we're gonna capture that feedback. Right, we have signed no contracts, we have made no final decisions. The attempt here is to have a conversation to obviously bring people up to speed with where we're at, so that we can do the best we can to get through this situation. So, you know, we're going to do whatever makes the most sense once we figure out how to do that, okay? Thank you. Yes, please.
I'd just like to make a suggestion, so,
Name and when you.
yeah, my name is Jake Usselman, got, 2 houses in the subdivision here. And I think that if we were to spread the replacements over maybe a 4-year period and just do 25 a year, have the consultants figure out which 25 might need to go first. You'd be able to bring that number down that's due from everybody, in the first year, and then maybe even look into an option of, well, for one, you'd be able to widen your vendor search then, because there's gonna be more contractors that can handle doing 25 roofs versus 96. But then maybe look at an option of a special monthly assessment versus a one-time assessment, and I think it's gonna be a lot easier to
And
get done.
so good point. We don't disagree. Here's a couple things, right? We've asked multiple vendors to try to give us that assessment per roof, and the general feedback we got consistently was that they're all bad, it's just a variation of how bad, and you know, whether or not you're gonna get it. Now, hang
It's not gonna be worse though.
I don't disagree, but I'm not a roofer, I can't climb up on the roof and make my own assessment, right? So we have to, you know, lean upon the professionals that we're working with. The other problem is, I'm not gonna sign a contract until we have the financing to support that contract, right? So if we do the monthly assessments, that, you know, is gonna create a situation where nothing starts until we go through a long period of time, in which time that dollar amount that we shared with you, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000, continues to escalate. So consider that like interest on a loan. We're just continuing to spend more money repairing the roofs while we're collecting the money, right? That we have to figure out how to stop the bleeding. That's at least our thought process. May not be right, that's why we're here to get feedback from you guys. So that's what we're here to do, so thank you for that.
Question.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is, last name is Gregory. What are you
proposing the same type of non-architectural roof shingles? Or is that $6,800 roughly architectural or a better grade than what was originally installed on the roof?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is architectural shingles.
So how many years is that? Is it a 55-year?
I would have to double check on the contract.
So you're talking architectural, everyone would have the same color, it
Yes.
would maintain
Yeah, it
the
would be-
aesthetic beauty
right,
of the
yes,
subdivision?
absolutely.
Okay, and you are saying, I wanna make sure I understand this correctly, regardless of the squares of your roof, everyone would be paying the same, is your proposal?
Unfortunately, because your documents aren't written such that
I
there's an
just wanted to
allocated
make sure I
interest.
understood
Yeah.
the.
But they're
So
also
my
not written
roof
to
is
the
smaller,
it's an allocated interest. Because I have a smaller roof
Yes.
than some.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Dave Lindstrom, I'm Brookside Cottages. If I just wrote a check, I'd get be the first one to get my roof replaced, because I really like the new roof. And at the same time, it's gonna increase the value of my home, because I wanna get the hell out of there. If I can sell it, it'll be worth more, right?
Thank you for mentioning that. There is another concern that we had at the time is we are starting to get the impression that if we don't resolve the roofs, we're gonna have problems getting insurance on the properties themselves. We've had individual owners reach out having problems getting their own personal insurance because of the life of the roofs. So again, one of the motivations for us to move at the pace that we have is trying to not, I mean, we're already painted into a corner, we're trying not to, have insult to injury on some of those
And
things.
material cost for roofing is going up at least 10%.
We got that specific feedback that if we don't get the material by February, so back to the why are we doing it all versus in pieces, cheaper to get it all up front, cheaper to get it before February, that's the thought process. But we're willing to take the feedback and try to make the best decision. Okay, yes, ma'am.
I'm Jessica, I live on Rushbrook. Just propose, how do you plan on replacing that? Is it gonna be assessing each roof by the most damage? How do you propose each one gonna be replaced?
If we waived our wand tomorrow and everybody paid the assessment, I mean, essentially they're gonna have 5 or 6 crews come in. It would be a balance of trying not to be too disruptive to the neighborhood, but they're just gonna go down the row and do all of them, right? I mean, that was the ideal pie in the sky plan, right?
So not more than a 2-month period before everybody.
Would we have notice in advance?
Yes, they would communicate with
Oh,
everybody.
absolutely, we would have meetings, communication, yeah.
Yeah, because some people do work from home, so that would want to.
Yeah, they would leaflet, they would communicate beforehand, you would know, before your roof got touched, that that's what they were working on. I mean, again, I can't wait to be at that part of the conversation, but right now.
Well, that's what's been lacking for the last year is communication. I mean, I'm one of the people who, my home insurance is dropping me at the end of the year because the roof's old. And so I reached out to Century in March, and it took until July before I was able to talk to Nicole, because former David Utrick, community manager, I couldn't ever get him to actually give me a straight answer before I even knew who our board members were. So I was talking with them before the meeting tonight. I think communication improving is their goal, and finding the right way to do it is definitely something that we want to do, because there has been little to no communication, at least what it feels like to me. I'm sure many of you agree as well.
Let me respond to that. So, we had our annual meeting in March. Before we brought Century on board, we sent out a letter to everybody, a physical mailing, letting you know, hey, we're switching to Century Management. They have the portal, please sign up for the portal, please provide your contact information, right? At the annual meeting, we talked about communication and that mechanism, right? Our most efficient means by which to communicate with everybody is through that portal, through electronic communication. Physical mailings are prohibitively expensive, and we still get mixed results on anybody actually reading the letters that we paid $1,000 to send out. It doesn't cost us to send the emails, but if you're not signing up for the emails, or if they're going into your spam folder, you're not reading them, I can't solve that. What I can promise you is that we publish the minutes from each one of our meetings every month. I personally write a written in English, I would say, English language report for the President's report. What are we working on? What are we talking about? It goes in that, it goes out every month. We've been doing that for 6 months. That is our attempt to communicate what we're doing, where we're at, what's going on. Had you have received those and read them, none of this would be a surprise to you, because we've been talking about it for months.
So I just want to respond real fast, because I brought this up before the meeting, and I don't think you were here yet. I just noticed this last week, Century's portal on Chrome is not pulling up any of the documents. It's a blank
I'm
screen.
not talking about
It's
the
like
documents, we're emailing them to
No,
you.
I know, but I'm sure a lot of people like myself have a Gmail, and that's what I was bringing up earlier. I mean, emails, Again, you can point the blame at us as using personal emails, as Gmail, Yahoo, whatever, but it's probably getting buried unless you're seeing on your phone. It's going to get buried within, you know, an hour, a couple hours, and it's easy to miss it. I mean, I've done it. I've missed it. But like you said, it's supposed to be in the portal, but it doesn't work on Chrome. It doesn't work on half the browsers. And
It should work on Chrome, because that's what I work off of, and I don't have problems.
so I work off a MacBook, and maybe that's different, but MacBook, and I've gone into Chrome, and every time I've done it, I can pull it up here, and you search, and it just blank screens. You can't pull up any documents, so I have to go to Safari and look there. And I mean, it's just, if I'm experiencing it, it could be something that multiple people are experiencing.
I've also heard that some people, they only have signed up on like the payment part of the website,
Which
so they're
is
not
different.
getting emails.
There's 2 different emailing
So
signups,
there's
too.
some sort of miscommunication there, so people weren't getting it.
Yes.
If they weren't signed up on
The
both, I
click
just wanted
pay
to
versus
put that
the full.
out there, because I know that's kind of essential, so we might try to.
Yeah, we
figure
have a
something out.
third-party
Yeah.
payment provider.
Agreed.
So, I know.
In the
some
back,
people-
yes.
We were under the impression in talking with our insurance agent that this would cover the comment policy. Could someone clarify why it wouldn't?
In your.
So, just to be clear, we consulted with our insurance representative, right?
You're talking about your personal thing that you're carrying?
Yes, my personal insurance
Yeah.
policy,
Okay,
my
thanks,
personal
thanks.
assessment will replace my roof instead of this assessment to the HOA.
Yeah, I can't speak to anybody's personal insurance
That's
policy.
what I'm trying to figure out.
Wait, what I'm asking is, the assessment that you're going to send to us, why is that not covered under our condo policy?
I can't,
I think
I'm not an
this is
insurance.
She means your HOA insurance. Why isn't your insurance
It's
paying
not
for
a
it?
claim, that's why.
It's not a covered
If you
event.
all, if we didn't have
They're just
this,
old.
and you had a homeowner's policy, and you needed a new roof, your insurance is not gonna pay for that, unless there was hail damage or
But it's a
whatever.
special assessment, and I'm under the impression.
No, that's totally different.
So I think you're talking about loss assessment coverage, and loss assessment coverage is, loss assessment coverage is if you get special assessed for a insurance deductible. So if there was a loss event and the deductible was $100,000 and each of you owed a portion of that $100,000, your insurance loss assessment coverage is gonna cover that. That's what that's for. That's not for general special assessments. So I think that might have been the confusion.
Yes, go ahead.
So obviously there's 2 different kind of styles of villages. And so what I'm understanding that you're saying everybody equally divided is gonna have the same special assessment, although some of the villages or whatever you guys
You mean
call them.
the cottage?
Yeah.
The actual home?
Yeah, some of the homes are different. So some you've got a 2-story and some you've got a 1-story. Well, the 2 stories are gonna be a higher roof, you know, a higher expense on a roof. What's the difference between the 2 styles? And why is it we're not, dividing that cost equally? Like, let's lump all the 1-stories together and all the 2-stories together, and we should be doing a roof assessment like that.
As we said before, right, it's one association, right?
Well, it's
So-
good to get that.
Why does it have to be? Has it been put on the table of us disbanding?
Yes, that's been a hot topic since we took over. We have formed, again, in my notes, we have formed an indenture committee to assess possibly splitting it out, reworking it.
Or just ending it?
But that's fine, but any of that discussion is gonna require written consent of 2/3 of the entire neighborhood to make any changes after we've gone through the process of writing the new indentures, right? Yet you're talking, maybe a couple years from now, we can get to that,
2/3
right?
of the members plus whoever holds the lien
So-
on your house. So your lender, if you go to US Bank and they hold your mortgage, they need to approve the dissolution.
So the,
Maybe we can get all of our
so the simple
lenders
answer is,
go against it.
the way the association works is, it has expenses.
That's gonna have effects on
It
property.
has owners, the owners split the expenses.
For the cottage.
For
The
the-
cottage is, well, you.
Just in general, but I mean,
Right, yeah,
whether
but
it is.
you're doing like apples to bananas, right? They're all fruit, but they're a little bit of a different.
The problem is, in our
You
indentures,
know?
you are just listed as a cottage home. It
Yeah.
does not say, okay, Frank owns a 1,700 square foot cottage home and Jones owns
Yeah,
an
but
1,800.
mine is 900 square foot.
Well, I'm just trying to say,
Right.
there is no difference, I mean, it,
Sure.
I just think that's,
I mean.
And that would be a great conversation when we talk about redoing indentures and maybe the cottage owners, but I tell you, there's a lot of cottage owners I've gotten feedback from that absolutely wanna keep all the amenities and services. So that's gonna be a conversation once we get there.
Services.
Right.
You cut the grass, that's it. You cut the grass.
If you call it that.
It's, okay,
We're
next
just
question.
here for roads.
I see a hand back there, yes, please.
We're never gonna get done. Hello.
We got a question back there, please.
My name's Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Live on Court. So I guess my question is, I know I don't have $6,700 to pay you by January, whatever, that the special assessment would be.
Right.
Right, like, I'm sorry, I just don't, that, my savings account is not that grand. I would love if it were. So I guess what happens when that's true, right? When some of us just can't afford that this quickly, because we're talking
Well, and that's
November 1st.
right, but that's what we're trying to say. We are not. This was the after we did everything. This was the only prominent conclusion that we could come from. Okay, so we needed to start this conversation. Okay, we didn't want to wait for months and then say, okay, well, we'll go to the conversation and we'll start the ball. Because we know this is not going to be settled tonight. We know not everyone's going to write a check, we know. And we've already made an assessment. We're not signing a contract until every single one is on the same page. So, that being said, which is going to be shaky at best, okay? Okay? So what we're trying to say to you, nothing is happening. We are not forcing anything. This was just a way to start the conversation.
Okay, so what
How
are
is
our
that?
foreseeable options, right? The one option is somehow everybody, all 90 houses are able to pay that at once, which we know probably not true, at least that's, mine's one off that, so 89 maybe. So then splitting it up, even if you split it up per month, like even if you wanted it all in 1 year, that's still $550 roughly a month. That's one of my car payments.
Right.
And then if you spread it out even further, obviously you've already talked about that's not a great option either because they need to be replaced, right? So I guess I just don't know where the happy middle ground is.
And neither do we.
No, join our
Right?
world.
Again, we've tried to get everybody's attention to understand this problem is here, the money is not, you know, we need to figure something out, and I don't think we have 3 years to solve the problem. Maybe we do, I mean, right, we can try to revisit that part of the conversation. But I don't have a good answer for you. We're gonna have to decide on something, we're gonna send that assessment, you gotta be.
So you'll at least give us a notice before the lien gets placed on our house.
So, it will follow the same process. We talked about the accounts receivable, the money that's currently pending to the association, right? This would follow the exact same process as that, right? And I don't wanna go all the way down that road, but you get an intent to lien letter that says, hey, you're past due, and if we don't get the money, we're gonna do a lien. Then there's a period of time, if you still don't do anything, then we place the lien on the home. Then there's a period of time, and then we send it to the lawyer for judgment, and so on and so forth. I mean, it would be the same process, whether you just paid no assessments or just did special.
And then ultimately, write the HOA, even more money if you have to.
Yeah, we don't wanna do that.
We don't wanna do, right, we don't wanna do it, right. We would like to find the best thing that works for everyone.
Hang on.
No,
Yes.
you're fine. No, I agree.
Yes, please.
Brittany, you asked a great question. You asked a great question.
Is it about the roofs? Okay, what do you got?
What I'm up to the roof, I just,
So before you make your
stated,
write-offs, you
once
will
I
look at
noticed the indentures were being rewritten, I said, we do not give permission to rewrite the indentures.
We're not
And
rewriting.
then all of a sudden, I saw the letter of $6,500. And I'm wondering, is this a hook to say it's like such a high amount of money for people to get out of the insurance to work in your favor? Because I did have somebody reach out to me from the indenture committee. So I am
I'm looking for the roof question.
Yeah.
She wants
And
to know,
what's a hut?
is this for us to say, we'll just get rid of the additions?
Oh, no,
That's
no,
what-
no.
For the roofs, like, we're gonna say something so high, I mean, that's
No.
gonna cause.
No,
some
we showed you the pictures, right? We're just trying to fix the roofs. Okay, yes, sir.
You
Yeah,
really think
so, okay,
so much.
so we know that there's all these roofs being done.
Right.
You heard that, of course, we clearly don't have either the money or
Right.
want to pay out $7,000 up front. So there's this thing that the rates are gonna go, or the material costs are gonna go up in February. So the real question is, so all right, what are you guys gonna do from here? All right, so we've talked about phased approach. I'm assuming you've already thought of that and talked about that and ruled it out and said this was the best option. So is this go back and redeliberate, or are you guys gonna put together a group of people to go figure out the math behind all the different options and
So,
come back?
that's a good question. So,
It is a good
to communicate, we have been working on this since roughly March. Our conclusion had been, and I think I failed to mention something earlier, maybe I already said it, I apologize if I'm repeating myself. With both the contractors we had gotten close to considering, which was Ferguson and Wagner, I believe, we got both of them to commit that if we sign the contract with them, that they will cover all repairs through the ending of the contract. So basically, signing a contract with them stops the bleeding of all the repairs that we're doing today. So our conclusion, having gone through that process, was we wanted to get locked in as soon as we could to avoid the price increases, to avoid the continuing expenses. Understanding that that's a big number, I don't have a solution for how do you come up with that money, right? But what we didn't want to do was sign the contract and, make a decision that can't be reversed until we had this meeting to get the feedback, right? We want that feedback. That's going to influence our final decision, obviously. Again, I'll be clear, these are your roofs, it's your money. We're just the sorry volunteers that are in the position to try to fix the problem, okay? So we'll try to spread it out. It seems to me like that's where we're
Right.
going.
Yeah.
That's gonna end up costing us more in the long run, but if that makes it easier, we'll probably do is try to figure out what makes most sense though. Is it 2 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 3 years? I don't know, right? We'll have to figure that
And
out.
we'll
Can
have,
we obtain our own roof people to determine?
No.
truly?
I mean, you can, but it's not gonna help us.
I got a really easy question.
Okay, hang on, let me try to spread it out. You got your arm back
She's
there?
been way back.
Yeah, way back there.
Sure.
Is there, did they get, I know that they said all of them are bad, and let's be honest, at the end of the day, they want to sell you a roof too. So, I work in code enforcement, I see it all the time, people get bids for stuff, and it's really, really high, because they want to sell you something. Was there an amount given to maybe repair the ones that are the worst off, with that reserve money that we currently have, to give us time to start building up, say you add an extra $50 monthly, which sucks for everyone, I get it, including me. But like, that way, starting in 2025, we could start phasing to do phase 1 of a roof and have some more money to do those. I know that we can't wait forever, the roofs are bad, my shingles blow off, I get it. But like, that way, nobody is impacted as quickly, and we use some of this other money, and we're still replenishing that reserve every month as you guys are taking that 10% out. And
So-
that way, there is not, as I was saying, here, write a $6,500 check, because let me tell you, based on that $33,000 already, you ain't getting it from half these people.
So you said, let me go through that, because you said a couple things, right? How much would it cost to do the repairs? I believe the number we had is like $30,000 or $40,000.
And that's
Okay.
just, that's on like 16, isn't that 16?
Yeah.
That is like 16 homes, or cottage, the cottage homes, your home, that were assessed. We did make a decision as the group, because of cost-wise, we didn't ask them to assess all 96.
Yeah, because they're not gonna get on 96 roofs and give you
And
a
we,
diagram and come
or it
up
was
with a
gonna
schedule
cost
for
us
free.
a
I mean,
lot
that's
of
gonna
money,
be expensive.
okay? And we were trying to be mindful of what this project was already gonna cost to get it
Yeah,
started.
we're on a shoestring budget. But the problem is the math doesn't work, right? $50 a month is like another 15 years, right? We don't have that.
That was just a number, because I'm.
But that's the problem is though, once you get to a number that works in the time frame, it's more like, $500 a month, like that was mentioned. And then when I wrap that, my rationally, is $500 a month better than $3,000? Like it's.
Yes.
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 Okay, well, that's what we're here to get the feedback for, okay. All right. Yes, ma'am, right here.
My name's Emily. I own 314 Burning Brook. I've been here since 5 homes have been built. So a couple little things. Reading the documents that were sent, it said we were getting charged almost $50,000 in undoubtful accounts. So I understand people don't have the money. There is $30,000 that's already not getting paid currently. So why are we being expected, the people who have paid every penny, why are we being expected to pay for undoubtful accounts for people to get their roofs fixed when we don't expect them to pay regardless?
Great question.
That is a great
Here's, this, you know, the answer is welcome to an association, right?
But that shouldn't be welcome to an association, because like
That
you
is
guys
how it
have
is.
said, you are currently working on following the correct procedures.
That's right.
So if we're following the correct procedures, we shouldn't have to be paying additional for people who haven't paid.
That's great, but the procedures, let's talk about the procedures. That's great, let's talk about the procedures. We have to pay a lawyer to take them to court, so now we're spending money on that. If they don't do that, we can foreclose on the property and kick them out of their home because they haven't
And then the
paid.
HOA owns it, we can sell the homes and build.
We may not get, no, we don't own it, we don't own it necessarily. We don't own it necessarily, and maybe the lawyer can clarify on some of these things. But, and I'm not a lawyer either, so please don't put this into stone, because I am still learning, back to the previous conversation. Let me finish.
Okay.
That process is gonna cost money. It doesn't guarantee that we recover that money, right? Because when we foreclose, there's other, you know, people that are ahead of us on the lien and all that, right? The mortgage and homeowner and all that, right? And then, I just wanna clarify, so those are in this room today that can't afford the assessment when we make it, do we wanna talk about you're getting foreclosed on your home? You know,
Let me make this
that's
easier.
not our attempt here.
So the other part of what I would like to mention is, if we're talking about a phased repair, sure, it'd be in my benefit to say, hey, look at when the homes were purchased and made or built, because the oldest ones should be replaced first. But I also think part of the phased repair should be if homes are not up to date on their assessments, they should not be replaced until the very, very end, or not even at all. You know, I understand as part of the association, it is what it is, but if we're talking about options, I think that should be an option to be considered, because I have owned a home in here and I've paid every penny.
We have most
right?
certainly considered that option.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, what you got?
Well, I hope you guys didn't take offense to what I said earlier. I was just giving you the information.
No,
From my
please.
insurance people and my roofer and the people I know in the industry. But she just brought up, well, the question I had, you're talking about the people that have not. And I don't know, I know when I do a big project on someone's home, I have to give them a lien waiver at the end that I have been paid, so I cannot come back. I do everything on the books just like it's supposed to be. I know when somebody refuses to pay me at the end because they don't have the money, boom, 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 I can go file a lien on them for just a few dollars. And then if, once that house sells or anything.
Are you volunteering to file all our liens for us?
So, you got that, is there that many homes that are like that?
And I can prepare
I mean, we just covered $33,000.
I know there's 33,000, but it can't, not all 96 homes, not all 96 homes is the problem. I'm sure it's
Overall,
a
we have
handful.
17 cottage homes.
I'm sorry, 17?
17.
Okay, but and I appreciate,
I mean,
when we got the letter, I do appreciate the part where you said you're gonna lower the monthly assessment.
Well, that's,
But I will
For the
say
budget
that.
for next year.
Yeah, for the budget next year, but I will say I was disappointed.
Me too.
That's my only disappointment, because we got it up to 200 with all the past issues we had. I would rather see it to go 240, 250 myself, to take care of our neighborhood better.
Write that down.
And get better. Get better, well,
I hear you.
bottom line is, everything's going up, everything in my business here has gone up between 25 to 33%.
Agreed.
So if we keep staying and we keep going lower, we're gonna
That's
end
been
right
our
back in the
problem
same hole.
for
I agree.
16 years or whatever.
I agree.
That's the problem now.
We stayed at
But
home
remember-
so many years.
I agree, but here's why that happened. Let me make sure we got the full context. It jumped way up. Remember the pie chart? 50% is insurance, right? Our insurance is gonna start getting cheaper, hopefully. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, we managed to go down this year. Yeah, we did.
As long as the roofs stay there, it's not gonna go down.
Yeah, we did. Our budget for cottages was 102. It was 172.
Well, Rick,
No, that's wrong.
not.
That's not wrong.
Rick,
That's wrong.
I have a business card with me tonight for an insurance broker who specializes in
Yeah,
stuff like we
we've
do.
gone to so many brokers.
Yeah, they do
again.
work with a broker,
And
so
I
we've gone.
I showed him, I told him what we were making,
My-
what we were paying, so, you know.
Apparently, I'm not the treasurer, so I'm speaking out of turn.
Yeah, no, I apologize.
But the number that we came up with is covering the reserves that the reserve study is recommending that we collect,
Okay.
right? So we did those reserve studies to get that guideline of what should we be collecting to prepare for going forward, right? And we believe that that number gives us that reserve collection as well as covering the cost of insurance and all the other fees. The problem is simply the reserve hadn't been done up to this point. That's why we're in this situation.
I hope it works.
Is it permanent, in the, I guess,
I'm sorry.
bylaws, is the reserves, is that how we're running reserves now? Is that in the?
What do you mean, how are we?
Indentures?
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm confused.
You're saying increase in the reserves because it never went up, is that part of the ventures?
No, it's always been there.
Reserves have always been collected, but there's no reserve.
No, reserves have never been collected.
An assessment is in
What?
the indentures, in all of them, and a requirement for you to pay it is in all of them. It's just, we hadn't been paying enough in every single month. Yeah, and part of that is, you keep the price down on the association dues, it brings the price up on the house, you can sell the house for more. That's why builders who kind of been in control like to keep the association dues at the lowest amount, so they can sell the house for the highest amount.
I guess what I'm asking, the reserves that you put aside, the 10%.
Yeah.
What is going to ensure that that continues moving forward? Is there
Having a
something-
board that has the wherewithal to do it?
There you go.
The assessment only states the dollar amount, doesn't state necessarily how it's spent. That's up to the board to determine and the reserves to the state.
Well, the annual budget is published to all the owners that kind of detail all of that out. And then, also the board publishes your financials on a monthly basis.
So we
You
can be
see.
back in the same position if somebody changes their mind and stops doing reserves.
Yeah, that's why you gotta stay active and involved.
So what if you wanna buy into the emails? On, August 22nd, you said every homeowner can attend.
Oh my God, stop. It's about the roofs.
Okay.
But
I don't know,
You've had your hand up, sir, yes.
dismissed, again,
Yes.
dismissed. Do we see what
This
happened?
is kind of about the roofs. I mean, it is about the
So,
roofs.
Go ahead.
But the snow removal,
Yeah.
being 26,000, is that paid no matter what?
No.
No,
So that's
it's,
maybe a possibility.
That's an estimate.
yeah.
That's a little bit extra money.
It's a budget.
Right.
Some years we go over, like last year, I think we didn't spend nearly that much, we don't give it that
This
much.
month, we might have 26,000.
So like in 21, before we took over, there was an overage and we have more snow, so it went above the budgeted amount. Last year, we had a budget of 17,000, we only spent 12.
I think that's a good thing.
So,
There's a lot of
so
places
what,
that make you
so
pay that.
the other thing you all,
Right.
that I wanna reiterate is if we set the budget and we don't use as much snow removal costs, or we don't spend as much in extra groundwork, even though we have budgeted an X amount, that money stays in your checking and money market account, your reserve account. So that money never leaves your area. So that is why last year, and with the modifications we made as a board, because I can tell you, in 2021, we replaced just cost of tearing out dead trees and putting in new trees, almost $20,000 in 1 year for you guys. So when we came in, we kind of said, okay, we gotta kind of stop, like, we aren't gonna, we're gonna look at everything, we're gonna really watch it. And that is why we have really been able to build the accounts that we have right now in reserves. Because we didn't have that money. Last year in December of 2022, to put it quite frankly, we had $2,957 in your checking account. And we had $16,853 in our reserve. And that, based on those numbers and what we were looking at for the next budget, and with the insurance costs that went up, that's where we came to the conclusion of doing the $200 a month. That would give us that extra $20 to go into the reserve account a month for you guys. So now we're sitting at what, 34,000 in an operating account and 33,000 in a reserve account. And that's not including what we are owed. So we are really trying to do the best by you all. So if you come out of nothing from that, come out that we are really, we put a lot of effort and time in thinking what is best and how do we best serve you.
Yeah, we're not blaming you.
Oh, I know you're not,
You guys
but
walked
I
into a
want you to,
nightmare.
I want you to physically see what we are trying to do.
I wanna keep our.
Go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Very much appreciate all of you. You're not in an easy position. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. I'd just like to ask that my ride has gotta take me in my broken toe. How will this decision be made? What's the next step from here? You've given us an opportunity to share. Perhaps we spread it over multiple years. Perhaps the people that can pay to throw their money in the hat and the folks who can't don't. How will the ultimate decision be made?
I mean, ultimately, it's the board's burden to decide what we're gonna do and communicate it to you.
So if I put my money in first, my house gets it done first?
Hey, we started an incentive program. This
I
might
know,
be
this
something.
may be
We'll
the-
write that down.
I mean, I think, you know, we are gonna take back, cause we're really hearing you. We just need to figure out with what you're all saying, how do we work with a company and be able to make it work on both sides,
I mean, my gut reaction, and we'll have to talk about it and decide, my gut reaction from this meeting is, we probably need to try to spread it out, and we probably need to go back to the vendors and try to understand
How do we do that?
how do we best do that without spending a bunch more money.
Should we have more meetings soon to, you can tell us any progress that you made?
What I would say is, please sign up on the portal. We're gonna send communications electronically. It's just the most efficient way for us to do that.
Okay.
Oh, yes, sir.
Go ahead, Vic.
Go ahead. He had his hand before me.
Well, I'm trying to get people who haven't spoken.
You haven't.
Hey, actually, believe it or not, you guys answered just about all the questions from everybody that went through. Had a couple, things, the estimates. How long and, when and where to send them, that's what I need to know. Second thing is.
You mean if you're getting an estimate?
No, for, you say you're gonna do some more estimates? as
Oh,
well?
So you mean roofer recommendations
Right.
to get bids?
I would,
Yes.
reach
The
out
sooner
to-
the better, I
yes,
would say.
reach
Okay.
out
I'll give you my
Nicole.
card.
Nicole would be the person.
Nicole's gonna collect all
Okay,
of that.
great. I would love that. Secondly, I'm one of the bad roofs. I actually had a roofer out. I had a leak before. I paid out of
I think-
pocket for the interior. And then I had some more shingles, and I got pictures where it's lifting up in the front and all of that. So I'm really bad. So I have tenants in there, and I'm on 7 different associations or whatever. This is my first time here because it's all, you know, I didn't know it was in disarray. So forgive me, I just busy. But I'm retired now. I got plenty of time. and I do property management and stuff like that. So as well as contractors. So when you do the estimates, I want to be there because we're not using our buying power. And with that buying power, you have strength instead of just accepting what they give to you. So I want to be there. And the other thing is split with the phases. That's correct. That'd be the best way to do it. We did it in Magnolia. Works great. We're the same deal, you know, so we can do it, you know, but we need to separate the bad ones from the good. If they say they're too lazy to get up on the roof, they can get up there. They can do it. So I would like to be there, and I will do it. I volunteer my time to do that. My name's Darren McMichael. I'm at 109 Brushy Brook. Been there for about, I don't know, since 2012, 2014. I forgot which one.
Okay.
Purchased.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to be there, seriously.
Yes, sir, in the back.
If one was so inclined, what would stop them from just paying their own roof repair? If they had the funds available to just do it themselves? Like,
I That's a fascinating question.
You still pay the
I
inspection.
mean,
But
yeah,
like,
you're,
somebody came to me saying I could do it for like $4,500.
but if you did that, we would still be obligated to assess you.
To assess.
And if you're an owner in the neighborhood and we decide there's an assessment, everybody pays the assessment.
I know, Andrew, what?
So, I just real quick want to ask, because someone brought up the snow removal. Is snow removal, remind me, is that an indenture? Because I feel like
Yes.
if
Yes.
it is an indenture, so it has to be done.
Has to
It's
be
not
done.
something that can be cut out for a year or two and set aside the money, because I feel like we have so many kids in the neighborhood that would, for $20, could do someone's driveway and then save us a ton of money.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's in the indentures. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry?
The bids that you guys are waiting right now, are they usable for us to?
You know,
I don't see why not.
we don't, yeah, we're not hiding anything, I mean, yeah. Yeah, we can make those viewable.
Sure.
We're fine.
Well, I'm just, because there's a 15-year shingle, there's a 30-year, there's
Yeah,
architectural.
so,
Yeah.
so to be clear, what we did to try to address some of that,
All this stuff.
that's what I mentioned earlier, we worked with the consulting firm, Modern Roofing Consulting, to give us an RFP, right? So the point is, they know a lot more about roofs, they spell out what their expectations were for anybody that provided a bid. They had to do a certain type of shingle and a certain type of flashing and et cetera, so that every bid that we got met that expectation. So the attempt is to get to an apples to apples type of comparison. But yeah, we can.
Yeah, we don't have a problem.
Is that the broker that was out there today?
I don't
I
know,
don't have any
It was
idea.
at 1.5.
I don't know what it is.
Couldn't tell.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
try to summarize what I'm hearing for everybody and make sure you guys tell me. What I'm hearing, instead of one big $6,000 fee, go from $200 a month to probably $250. I know that's very mean and painful, but you go from 20. I thought I heard you say that. I was over there. No, sorry about that.
No, I just said the prices could be lower.
I'm just saying, if you go from $20 a month into the reserve to $250, that's gonna be $70. It's almost 4 times as much. So that's gonna be, you only got two options. One is one big assessment for $6,500, or go, and it's gonna be painful, but go to like $250. Go through a phased approach. That'd be number one. 2, go over 3 or 4 years, worst houses. Get a couple more estimates, that's fine. And last of all, a couple of landlords, here, and here, there. The approach to, I've taken it, other homeowners associations, landlords, different rule. If you're past due as a landlord, I immediately go to foreclosure on you. Different set of rules for landlords. Sorry, guys, if you can't afford, keep your places up. I'm just saying, it may not be nice, but you're newer to the board, but
There's also other instruments.
yeah, that's the first thing you do.
That's a part of the process.
It is part of our process.
That's perfect. But I think, is that kind of what we're hearing, guys? I know that's not what you want to, but it sounds like over time, a little bit higher, maybe it's not 250, maybe it's 225, but
Don't lower it.
don't lower it.
And I apologize, I don't know where the lowering, I don't know.
That came from, we're looking at the operating budget, we're looking at the operating expenses, the necessary reserve contribution, assuming the roofs get done today. The roofs don't get done right away, okay, then it's a very
Yeah,
different
it's probably not
scenario.
gonna be lowered, because what we're hearing is we're gonna increase that and spread it out.
And
Don't
do
quote me on
exactly
how
what
and
you've been
when.
doing, which is, guys, we're gonna really, I hate to say it, cut back on our expenditures, and we're not, if a tree's dead, it might, we're not spending 20 grand. I think the board's doing everything right, it's just, am I hearing kind of the consensus? Go a little bit up in the association dues monthly.
I've got no problem with it.
But what if you wanna sell your house now?
You got a lot of landlords right here that got cars.
Wait a minute, if I wanna sell my house now.
I got a
and
card
someone
right here.
wants to come in and they're willing to buy it, but when the inspectors come and they say, oh, you need a new roof.
You tell them it's maintained by the
Who's gonna
HOA.
pay for that new roof?
Nobody. Yes, ma'am.
I'm in real estate, and first off, you can't foreclose on a property with an HOA. Usually foreclosures occur when it's a bank and you don't pay a bank.
That's a
Or
deed
your
of
real
trust.
estate taxes, okay? Your real estate taxes, so it's federal government and then your lien holder. Your lien holder would be your mortgage company, okay? When you get foreclosed on a piece of property, 9 out of 10 times the HOA liens are very lax. That's what these guys were saying.
that's why they're in the predicament of putting judgments and putting liens against the property to hopefully try to secure their money back, their funds back.
I would respectfully slightly disagree. All of the mortgages, all the banks do not have mortgages here in Missouri. Illinois has mortgages. We have a deed of trust over here in Missouri. On the banks, they just go to the deed of trust approach. The reason why you have a different set of rules for landlords is when you go to the foreclosure process, you don't really care about that house. I realize it's subordinate, don't really care about it, because guess what? Not only is the house liable, but that guy's personal is liable for his I'm sure you got an LLC. Your LLC's liable, and I got some other properties in there, probably has some equity. So that's how you that's why you have a different set of rules.
Well, you can't sell a home without, doing a condo cert. I mean, they're not gonna release it or whatever, so.
True, that's another thing.
But there is a subordinate deal.
They are subordinate, I agree. I'm just saying,
Of line of.
and I'm not saying, hey, we don't wanna go to the foreclosure process. We don't wanna do any of those things. It's just a different set of rules from the landlords. Let's increase the rental rates, or excuse me, our HOA fees. Let's do it over time. I think it's kind of the consensus. Is that agreeable? I don't live in it, I don't.
I mean, go ahead.
I have a question.
Bill for president.
So.
Yes.
So if I were to go get an estimate on my roof, which I'm doing this week, 2 different roofing companies, and I decide to put my own roof on, I still have to make that assessment?
Yes.
Fat chancing that you would get that money from me. We don't have that money, and I don't know who else in here has $6,700 laying around. We just put in a new air conditioner and furnace. $13,000. I don't have $6,700.
My recommendation would be do not pay someone else to put your.
Well, I can get free estimates.
Absolutely.
I just think what they're telling us is way too much.
I'd like to address that. My name's Rick D'Amato. I live in, I'm Brookside Court, and I've been in the trades my entire life. The one thing I want to tell everybody in here is, the longer you wait, the more money it's gonna cost. Like my friend up here down the street said, I've seen you when I'm walking my dog past your house when you're washing your truck outside. Right now, the last 2 years, we've had inflation in the building trades materials like we've never seen before. I'm an insulation contractor. My material prices have gone up 60% over the last 2 years, and I'm looking at 4 increases a year right now. If you wait 2 more years to get these roofs replaced, it's gonna cost you more money out of pocket. And the other thing is, anybody that's in the trades nowadays is not desperate for work. There aren't people out there that are begging for work right now. There's a shortage of labor. I can't get an electrician to come to my shop to give me a bid to replace the lights on my building, because everybody is so busy right now, they don't have enough labor, and they're getting the prices that they can get to make money. There's nobody out there right now that's desperate for work. The material prices aren't gonna come down, it's not gonna get any cheaper. It's gonna be painful no matter what, but the best solution is to agree to something as soon as possible and get it over with. Just bite the bullet and get it over with. That's why they're having this meeting. They want suggestions from everybody, how it's gonna be more palatable for everybody in this room. And it's not gonna be easy, and it's gonna hurt a lot of people. It's gonna be painful, but now's the time to do it. These roofs have, I've only been here a year. When I bought my house, I was told the same story. Yeah, the roofs are included, you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to pay for it. If I pay something for my roof, I have to pay for it, but I know if I pay for it now, it's gonna be cheaper than if I pay for it 2 years from now.
And just out of curiosity, like, let's say, like, a handful of people do pay the $6,500 or $6,700. Does that guarantee that their roof is going to be the ones replaced first, or is that just going into a pot?
Exactly, that is the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and I'm gonna answer it honestly, it goes into a pot.
Okay, so I think,
And it's not, and if you personally asked us, that's just how it has to happen. It's not what we personally would choose to happen.
See, and I think that's a huge deterrent.
But do you understand?
I do understand, but I also feel like it's a huge deterrent for people who
It
do
is.
have savings and do
But
wanna pay,
as
because
Bill mentioned,
obviously they want their roof replaced.
It is, but as Bill mentioned, there's also deterrent to just not pay and become behind, because we're gonna follow the same process that we do with everybody else, and that's gonna include judgment and everything else. We don't wanna do that. That's why we're trying to figure out the best solution, but that's gonna happen sooner or later.
And you
Yeah.
told us we haven't collected the $300, so now suddenly we're gonna go and enforce getting the
We've,
6,500?
we've been in the process of enforcing that since we got on the board, right? We have, I don't know, how many accounts have gone to the lawyer?
Yeah, probably 15 or 16,
15 or 16 accounts that are now with the lawyer.
across the entire association, not all.
Yeah, we only have 5
I'm concerned of sending my money in, and I put my money in, and other people can't.
Is there some way around that? Possibly.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I mean, unfortunately, that's part of living in a community association. You've decided that you're gonna have an association that cares for common elements in the association, whereas if you lived in, a single-family home structure, it's different. But then there's a trade-off, because if your next-door neighbor's not replacing their siding, it's falling off their house, or negatively impacting their property values. I'm just trying to make an okay, half their shingles are off their roof, and the association's not responsible for repairing it, well, now your property value is impacted. It's just the reverse of that. You live in an association, so you don't have to have that problem, but you might have to take on the cost burden of people who aren't paying, so it's a trade-off. It's just the structure of associations, unfortunately.
I'm curious if we've looked at any like more creative financing solutions, like when you look at the number of homes in the neighborhood, even if you did something along the lines of, hey, I wanna pay my assessment fees up front. We increase our current cash flow, delaying future expense. Knowing the length of the project, the amount of time, what the effort level is going to be, have we looked at any of the accounts to see when money comes in, when expenses go out, and if there's a time of year that would make more sense? Or if somebody, just like your insurance or your card payment or anything like that, if you're on auto draft, maybe you have a
I hear what you're
lower
saying.
fee.
I'm
I'm just
caught up to
curious
you.
if we've looked at that.
I mean, the simple answer is no. The problem is the scale of the cost, right?
Right.
The cost of this project, again, if we just did the whole thing in one shot, is like 2 years worth of budget. So it's not, there's no and to be clear, we're already starting at a deficit as we've communicated in the beginning. So, the money's just, it's not like, if you pay an extra month ahead of time, we'll get it.
Well,
we wouldn't be close.
I'm not talking about just the cottage, out of curiosity, I think, as you talked about, there were things that were spent in the past, right, that were not included, but they were covered. That basically, those expenses never should have been paid,
Right.
like the power washing, those sorts of
Sure.
things. I would venture a guess that for as long as the neighborhood has existed, that has probably happened a lot over the years. Even so, looking at, we've talked tonight primarily about cottage funds, and I'm curious if the funds for the rest of the neighborhood, everyone's been paying $300 for the access to one pool. It's not like the size of the pool changed.
And
what's
the
happening
mowing
with
of
those
all the
things.
common ground.
Yeah, we
So
have an
we
excessive
have
amount
an
of common ground.
extensive amount,
But-
which does
Sure.
include common area around
But
your
I guess what I'm
homes
saying is
as well.
is
It's
there,
not-
since it's one association, we talked about what's the overage for the cottages, what the reserve is for that. What is the rest of the state of the association?
It's no better when we're talking about master, but
Okay,
there's a
yeah.
reason why we're.
And that's fine, and that's the answer I wanted. I just need to know, hey, is it
Yeah.
better, is it worse, is it
So
good?
I want to say something brief about that. We did 2 reserve studies, right, after we got on the board and recognized this needed to happen. One for the master, which is what you're talking about, and one for the cottages. One association, 2 budgets.
Right.
Right? The budget for anything that's common is in the master. This specific topic we're having tonight is cottages and that budget. And there's a reserve study specifically for each, and they're published on the portal.
Well, I think the reason I asked that is there's some things that can't be split out, for instance, when we talk about insurance, for sure the property insurance is all cottages, but even the liability components to insurance is inclusive of the
And
neighborhoods.
there
You can't
is
say,
There
hey,
is a portion that does come out.
Yeah, we prorate that
We
and
pro
charge
that,
it against
and
the
we
master.
charge that against the master. Okay?
But it is one policy, but we
Right.
prorate it to the
Right.
master. Yes, ma'am.
A question about the repairs. I know we're talking about roofs. Are we talking shingles and things, or what if they get up there and find that the structural integrity of the roof is bad? Is that covered in those bids, or is that?
I mean, yes and no.
We do, in that figure, we did, come up with a contingency of
Yeah,
about 15,000.
there was an allotment knowing that's gonna happen, but there's obviously also a cost. Anybody's had their roof redone, you know, $40 a sheet, whatever the math is, right? If they find more
So we
problems,
wouldn't be tacked on more later.
No, that, the goal is that this does encompass those,
Yeah.
those offs.
But to the point that the gentleman in the back made, the longer we take, the more that's gonna cost, right? Because the longer we let the roofs stay in the state they're in, the more water damage gets to the wood, the more wood has to be replaced, and the cost escalates from there, right? That number we're talking about with 12,000, that's just because somebody called us and told us, hey, there's a problem with my roof, and we come out. There's plenty of roofs to the point that if nobody's calling me, we're not repairing, and right now as we speak, it's potentially getting water damage because it's a 15-year-old roof and has not been maintained, right? So,
I'm
yeah.
just worried these roofs have more damage than.
Well.
We are too, that's why we are here
And,
tonight, right?
and yeah, because these assessments were done, weren't they done in July and
Yeah.
August? So we've suffered a small hailstorm. I don't know how many wind tunnels we've been in the last few months. So, yeah, that's why we really just decided we gotta do this. We just gotta do this. We gotta have this conversation.